Hello everyone, welcome to SNIT Training Center. This is Sampath here. In the last class, we have seen about Windows DNS. In today's class, we are going to see about Azure DNS. Before I get into this video, I request you all to like our video and subscribe our channel and encourage us to do many more videos. DNS. Now, what is this Azure DNS? Azure DNS is a cloud-based DNS system, okay, hosting service by the Microsoft. It allows you to host your DNS zones and records. So you create your DNS zones, right? Okay, that you are going to create the DNS service you are going to create in the Azure, and zones you are going to create in the Azure, and also the records which you are going to create and manage inside the Azure. That is what we're saying. Instead of using your traditional on-premises DNS server. Last time we already seen, right, how to configure this same in the on-premises server. The same thing which we are going to see in the Azure DNS. Okay, it uses same DNS standards as internet, but fully managed by the Azure. The same DNS standard, but the entire this has managed by the by the Microsoft. Okay, and by making it scalable, secure, and globally distributed. Right. So inside this, Azure. Inside this Azure, now we are going to create the DNS and configure the DNS. So when I configure in such a way that, so what happens here, when a user search for www.snitsolutions.in, in the previous session we discussed that request will go for the local DNS, and from there root DNS, from there top level DNS, and from there it go to the naming service provider, and from that naming service provider it will go to the naming servers, right? Now the same thing I am trying to say here. Now the GoDaddy, we have the picture here. Now the request will go to the GoDaddy, and from there it will go to the GoDaddy naming servers. And these naming servers, now we are saying that, okay, now we want to maintain these naming servers inside the Azure. Now the request will go from GoDaddy naming servers to the Azure naming servers. In the Azure naming servers, now it will go, and here we created what is it? Azure DNS. And in this Azure DNS, okay, we created a record, and we know that inside the a record, which will maintain the name and the public IP address where it has to be, forwarded. Now here inside this a record, what we have something called snitsolutions.in and the IP address, okay, of the destination. Now here the destination which has to go to the web server is Azure VM which we created. Now in this Azure VM we configured IAS, and inside this IAS we have the web pages, and now that web pages which are served to the user. Okay, now this entire process which we are saying, okay, which has happened inside the Azure DNS services. Okay, now why we go for the Azure DNS services? Okay, some of the key features of Azure DNS are DNS, okay, zone hosting. Now here we can host our public zones and also the private zones inside this Azure DNS, and these are highly available. These are highly available and with maximum uptime that Microsoft Azure to provide you, right? And Azure resource integrated. Inside this we have, we can integrate with Azure virtual machines, web apps, and also other app services. Okay, Azure services. Now custom record type. Now one of the example, we have many records, but one of the example which we have discussed, a record, right? We can customize our name and the destination IP which has to be get forwarded, and fast propagation with low latency, and we also have secure role-based access. Okay, that you can make some other employee to manage all these DNS services inside the Azure. So this is what, okay, on this Azure DNS. And in the next session, we are going to see practically how we create DNS inside the Azure, and how we create zone, and how do we create A records, and from there how we direct the user request to the web server, and from web server users should be able to get the web pages. So this is what which from the, and if you like this video, I request you all to like this video. And if you're not subscribed, kindly subscribe our channel and encourage us to do many more videos.